Good morning, Algebra 2. We are going to go over our 9.3b samples in preparation for our 9.3b quiz, where we are finding a reference angle, given an angle that we're going to draw in standard position first. Then we'll evaluate the functions sine, cosine, and tangent based on the reference angle. You'll use your calculator to find the values for the reference angle, and you're going to make sure your calculator is in degrees, not radians mode. All right, so for our one and only sample here, sample 1, part A, we're asked to find the reference angle for 100 degrees. So step number 1, draw 100 degrees in standard position. And that's what we're doing here. We're opening up an angle, going past 90 degrees, and showing that the 100-degree angle will fall someplace in quadrant 2. Then our next step is to figure out the reference angle. Remember, the reference angle will be the angle that's formed with the angle that you're given in the x-axis. So here's our x-axis, and so when we come over here to 100 degrees, we realize that, oh, there's another 80 degrees we'd have to go to get down to the x-axis. And to find out exactly what the number of degrees is here, we're going to take 180 minus 100 in this case to find out this is 80 degrees. So depending on what quadrant you're in, you're going to either have to add the value of the reference angle to 180 degrees or find the difference between the angle measurement and 180 degrees. That would be if you are in the third quadrant. If you're in the second quadrant, as we are here, we're going to find the difference between 180 and the given angle measurement. So you'll either add 180 or you'll find the difference between 180 and your angle that you're given. Or if you're down here in the fourth quadrant, you would have to find out 360 minus the standard position angle to find out what the angle measurement is. That is the reference angle that is formed next to the x-axis. So depending on which quadrant you're in, you'll use one of those methods, add 180, find the difference between the angle measurement and 180, or find the difference between 360 and the angle you're given in order to find the reference angle. Refer back to the guided practice and the homework problems if you're still needing to review how to find that reference angle depending on which quadrant you're in. Okay, so here we are with a reference angle of 80 degrees, and our job is to use this reference angle to find sine, cosine, and tangent. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in that right triangle that is formed with my reference angle on the x-axis, and I'm noticing that in order to get to a point on that angle here, the terminal side of my angle, I would have to go to the left and up, so negative for left and positive for up, and of course my radius of my circle here would always be a positive value. Now I'm going to figure out the signs for my sine, cosine, and tangent in this quadrant. Sine would be the y value, which is positive over the radius. So positive over positive is a positive, and I'm going to note this on my paperwork. That's part of what is expected when you're working out the quiz for this particular type of problem. The cosine would be x negative over radius. Negative over the radius, which is positive, is a negative. The tangent would be the y over the x, positive over negative. Positive over a negative gives you a negative. So we're just following the rules here of division, which is the same thing as the rules of multiplication to decide our sign. If we have like signs, positive answer. If we have unlike signs, negative answer. Okay, so now we're finding the sine of 100 degrees using our reference angle. So we're going to state in all cases the function based on the angle we're given. So sine of 100 degrees, cosine of 100 degrees, tangent of 100 degrees. Then we're going to write down the reference angle that we used to find the angle measurement. So sine of 100 degrees is the same thing as the reference angle sine of 80 degrees, and it's positive. We see that up here. So both of these angle measurements will give you the same value, which is 0.98. For the cosine of 100 degrees, that's the same thing as the opposite of the reference angle, cosine of 80 degrees. And we know to attach a negative sign this time because up here we've already figured out the cosine of 100 degrees would have to be negative. So cosine of 100 degrees is the same thing as negative cosine of 80 degrees, and that's negative 0.17. You should be making sure when you plug these into your calculator that you get exactly the same value because they are the same number of degrees. For a tangent of 100 degrees, that's the same thing as the opposite of tangent of 80 degrees, and we found out we have to attach that negative sign here because when you are in quadrant 2, the tangent value will be negative. So when we plug into our calculator, tangent of 100 degrees as well as negative tangent of 80 degrees, we'll get the same answer, rounded up to the nearest hundredth, negative 5.67. So what's expected on your quiz will be all of these kinds of pieces of information. I'll expect the reference angle drawn in. I will expect the plus and minus signs on the right triangle that's formed from the reference angle. I will expect this little kind of cheat sheet just showing you what the values of your sine, cosine, and tangent will be based on that reference angle. And then I will also expect the way I've formatted it here in our sample B, sample C, and sample D, where you give the original angle, and then you're going to give the reference angle with the correct sign, as well as the final decimal answer rounded to the nearest hundredth. All right, so if you have any questions, make sure you contact me so we can go over this more thoroughly if need be. If not, move on to the quiz, and we'll see you next time.